Hey, on my Travel Ones podcast, I'm lucky to have Jeff Bradford, who is the founder of the Beer, Wine, and Spirits channel. How are you today, Jeff?
I'm doing great, Pete. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate the time. We are definitely kindred spirits after talking to you a little bit before we start recording, so I'm really excited to get through this.
Yeah, I'm excited to share my story on your platform, and I appreciate it.
You're the founder of the Beer, Wine, and Spirits channel, which is a YouTube channel. It's a videos. You got a lot going on, but this is after your 20-year military experience. Can you give us a quick background of that?
Yeah, it's funny because here I was at 20 years and thinking to myself, okay, do I stay in and just 30 years? This is all I know from an 18-year-old kid to now 38 years old. Do I just stay in? Is it all I know, or should I get out and figure out the next stage of my life? And that's really, really what I had to think about, and it was one of the hardest decisions in my life. And I ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to go do something and build something for me. Luckily I postured myself financially, before I got out of the military. Obviously retired from the military. I had a passive income coming in with, my retirement check, and with some real estate that I've had with, the military, myself up to be able to find out what I wanted to be when I grew up, is what I usually say. And I knew one thing is I didn't want to go work and be a number 2 or a number 7 at a company. I wanted to build something for myself. And, at the basis of this was travel. Now, beer, wine, and spirits was not the first thing that actually came up, on the list of passions that I wanted to do. I actually started off doing these audio guided tours. If you can imagine, I was in, Brussels, Belgium, and I would create a tour, a walk around for an app, and different waypoints and talk about it. Yeah. That's something I worked out loving what I did. I liked it, but I didn't love it, long story short, I was in Belgium doing audio guided tours, and it was something that I didn't love doing. I didn't wake up, I liked doing it, but I didn't love it. So, and then I got down, again, all my list of passions, beer, wine, and spirits was number 4, number 5 on this. And the reason why is, if you could imagine, I was stationed in Italy, I was stationed in Bamberg, Germany. And every time I would, try a glass of wine in Italy, I'd look at the bottle and I was curious about who made it and how it was made. So that's kind of really where it started for me. And, I sent out 50 emails in the beginning, and one, winery said yes, and I'd go tell their story. And I remember, the first time I did that, and after I was done after the day, and at that time I was blogging, I was like, I cannot wait to do this again. I loved it. And that's when I knew this is the route I wanted to take. I didn't have it all figured out, but I knew I wanted to travel, and I knew beer, wine, and spirits, combining those two things, those things is something that I wanted to do. And, I moved forward with it. And, for every 50 no's, I got 1 yes. And then it turned into 2 yeses and 3 yeses and so on and so forth. And, what was interesting is I started off blogging initially. And the reason wasn't comfortable in front of a camera. I'd never been in front of a camera. I was in the military, shying away from cameras when the spotlight was on me. So, and I remember coming up to talking to my friends, and they were just like, Jeff, we would love to watch this. I mean, what you're telling us is amazing. You made beer with delirium, over in Belgium, or you made beer with Chimay. Like, these are beers are amazing. And all you're just writing about them. I would love to see this. And I was like, no, hell no. There's no way in hell I'm doing that. Right. And then I remember one night I was sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, if I was 90 years old, and I never, ever even tried it, I would definitely kick myself in the ass and regret this, So I said, what the hell? Let's try it out and film. And here I am 3 years later, with the Beer, Wine, and Spirits channel, still loving every single minute of it as I did, 2.5, almost 2 years ago.
I was curious, does it drive you nuts? Or I guess as the entrepreneur in me, I've watched a lot of your episodes. Most of your episodes run about 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 views, right? And then You have some that are lower, but then you have the how to make tequila. It's like 1.3 million.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
have you figured it out? Because I haven't.
You know, it's interesting, and I'll never forget this. And the short answer to that is no. You know, all I can understand is search engine optimizations and keywords, but I haven't. You know, all I know is that I had 3 videos that said how beer is made, how tequila is made, went viral, or what I call viral for my channel. And I was just like, wait a minute, why just these ones, you know? And it was really the title that I kind of correlated it. But, you know, to be honest with you, I haven't figured it out. All I know is to keep getting better each and every video that I do, and push myself to get creative and make the best possible videos, you know, that I can. And Pete, I'll be honest with you, you know, a year into this, you know, I'm making these great videos. I'm putting a lot of time and effort and money behind it too, as well. And I'm getting, if you can imagine, I got a few thousand. I was getting probably back then, you know, a couple hundred views. And I'll never forget, I was in Croatia, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I'm 10 months into this, and I probably only have 300, 400 subscribers. Not many people are watching my videos. And I'm like, you know, why are you doing this? And I had this talk with myself, like, Jeff, what are you doing? Like, you could be doing anything else. You know, you're not making any money on this right now. Nobody's watching your stuff. You're not that good. And just really talking down on myself. And I really had to go back on my military training and say, look, you know, you gave yourself 3 years, you know, give yourself that time and never give up. You know, I've never been the one, you know, military, whether in a combat situation, to be like, oh, we're going to, you know, I give up. No, you never give up. You push through. And here I was, a 20-year veteran in the military, talking myself out and, you know, ready to give up because I wasn't getting the results. And, you know, it's funny that literally 3 months after that I kept going is when the tequila episode, you know, went viral and went over. I went from literally 200 views to a million views in like 2 weeks. You know, the subscriber rate went from, I think it was at 400 to 20,000, just like that. You know, and started to get more and more videos, you know, people watching it and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, here I am now, 3 months later, you know, I'm getting now people calling me, I'm getting direct messages, sponsorships, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, if I would have given up, you know, I wouldn't know, you know, this small victory, you know, that, you know, that I got with just this one video. And so it's been so interesting, but, you know, I haven't figured it out yet. You know, I put up my last episode was, you know, Texas Whiskey Explained, you know, and I love it. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I feel like all the episodes that I do love tend to get lower views and all the ones that I was like, nah, they do the best. But I don't know if I'll ever figure out the algorithm. All I know is to keep getting better and produce quality. You know, I remember a Steve Martin quote is be so good they can't ignore you, and that's kind of my philosophy. You know, as I move forward with, you know, learning all about video production and storytelling.
Man, I'm so with you on that, and I think a lot of digital entrepreneurs are going through that. You know, I mean, everything you just said is what I've said. Like, why am I doing this? I've only got a couple of hundred viewers. I've only got, you know, it's all the same stuff, and all of a sudden, like, I mean, I'm getting a couple of hundred views, you know, 500-600 views on a good YouTube, and I have one that's at 10,000.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I have no idea why. He's not my most famous person I've interviewed. He doesn't have the biggest social media following, but for some reason, it's just weird. I have not quite figured that out.
Yeah, it's for me, it's the same way. You know, my thing is especially moving forward is trying different things and telling stories for me that I want to share with the world. Right now, I'm getting ready to talk about, you know, environmental things within the alcohol industry, like regenerative farming. You know, one of the episodes I was sharing with you, you know, through email, I was, you know, talking about these distilleries that, you know, are looking at the environmental aspect, sustainability, and how they can make the world a better place through their business model. You know, making vodka from bread and pastries that is normally going to get thrown away such an amazing story to me. Now, that video might get 2,000 or 3,000 views as opposed to what I think should get 1,000,000 views. But, at the end of the day, those are the stories that I want to tell and share with the world, because as I found out, traveling around the world, everybody has a story, amazing stories that need to be shared, and, that's what I love about this journey that I'm on, is to be able to research, find these amazing stories, like turning bread and pastries, into vodka, for example, or taking expired beer and turning it into gin, and so on and so forth. So that's what really lights me up and gets me going. I wake up every day, ecstatic to just find these stories as I did in day one. And that's where I know that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm on the right path, in this next chapter of my life, which is beer, wine, and spirits.
I personally love your show. I mean, I think if I had to do a show, I would do it very, very similar to you, to what you've done. So, I mean, I like the editing, I like the graphics, all that, everything, and the way.
Yeah, I
the way it's
appreciate
shot.
that.
You got the drone shots in. I mean, obviously, drones won't apply to my life, but I just think it's cool, and it's the exact same mentality. It's like I've been told by experts, that's my air quote experts, that I should make my podcast more specific. Like I should only do athletes, or I should only do musicians. And I don't have an interest in only doing that. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny because, I get marketers being like, hey, Jeff, you should probably, for example, you should probably just stick to one or the other. I mean, that's what everybody else is doing, right? There's always a beer expert or a wine expert. And I'm like, well, why can't I be all three? Well, Jeff, because, people really don't know how to market, all three, but if you could get specific. And I'm like kind of like what you said, I don't want to do that, because guess what? I like a glass of wine, during dinner, or if I'm in Italy or, some of these other regions, and I like to taste, and I'm fascinated by how they created this. I like a good beer with my friends during a sporting event. I like a good whiskey at the end of the day with a cigar and peace of mind, Right now, I love all three of those, and I love exploring each and every one. Is it easy? No. Am I marketable because I'm not an expert in one of the three? Okay, that's debatable. But at the end of the day, it's not what I want to do. Like you said with your podcast, same thing. I got when I first started is Jeff, harp on your military, throw out your military, and I'm like, no, I would rather want somebody to come in knowing that, wow, this guy's pretty cool. He talks about beer, wine, and spirits. Oh, this guy's was 20 years in the military. I would rather want that, and that's what I did. And there was a lot of people, in the entertainment space, that friends of mine, family, like Jeff, like throughout the military, hey, former military, this and that, and it was just, again, it's just the feeling that I had and the way I wanted to do it was different than the majority of what everybody else told me and wanted me to do.
So far, you've talked and you've shared, like you went to Croatia and you've been to Jalisco, Mexico.
Yeah.
What are some of the other places you've been to, like Switzerland? I like the Texas whiskey. I thought that was a really cool episode because I didn't know about the Texas whiskey.
Yeah, I've since starting beer, wine, and spirits, I think we're up to 13 or 14 different countries now. I think within the military and obviously with travel with beer, wine, and spirits, I'm up to, I think, 35 or 36 different countries. But, that was, going back to the Texas whiskey episode, for me, it was like, here I am in the United States. I want to tell a whiskey story, but Kentucky's been told all the time. And I found out through a friend of mine, he's like, Texas whiskey is really blowing up right now. And was able to tell that story and share that story because a lot of people around the world only know Kentucky. When you think of whiskey in the United States, it's like, oh, Kentucky. Well, there's a lot of other different, regions now, in the United States. It's all blowing up again. You're seeing stuff in, the East Coast, and like we were talking about with Texas, and, pretty much all over the United States. So it's not just Kentucky and Tennessee anymore. Texas is coming up. They're a big state. They're third biggest producers and blowing up. But yeah, and unfortunately I would have been at probably 20 to 25 different countries obviously the pandemic didn't hit. I had to cancel. I think we were up to 15 or 16 episodes from March of last year to this year, beginning of this year. So, but it is what it is. But yeah, I can't wait to get back to traveling again.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you: is how badly did the pandemic affect you?
Yeah, when I was literally, I think it was March. Yeah, really this time, like March 17th or 18th, when I was getting ready to board a plane to London. And I just started a new series called Drink Destinations, where I go to a city. I have a guide show me around, and we talk about the best cocktails, bars, and highlight bartenders, the best bartenders in that city. So I did one in San Francisco already, and I was getting ready to do one in London. So I was getting ready to board the plane when, luckily, they canceled the travel and lockdown was in effect because.
Yeah.
If it would have been a day or two later, I would have been stuck in the UK, and who knows how I would have gotten back. But when that happened, I was like, well, there goes. My initial thought was, yeah, there goes beer, wine, and spirits. Because I base this whole channel and what I do off of travel, right? And then I realized, luckily for me, in planning, I had roughly 12 episodes that were shelved. So I've always had a backup plan to where, like, if something happens, I never thought a pandemic. I always thought, I might roll my ankle, you know what I mean, or break my leg doing something, where it put me in the hospital, I could still continue episodes. But so luckily I had that backup plan, and it really allowed me to really shift my focus because I was going so fast in producing these episodes, to saying, wait a minute, Jeff, let's figure out the pre-production side of things, and how you really do, really do that. Really understanding your storytelling, really looking at each episode and critiquing myself and saying, how can I get better? Looking at the trolls and the haters, right? That are like, yeah, this video sucks, your audio sucks, da 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 da. And really understanding why they said that, and seeing how I could, and how can I get better at that. So while this year, it literally was a blow to a lot of episodes. I had to go to one episode a month as opposed to I was doing weekly to, every other week. So, it was a blow in that nature. But, what I gained from that was, I think, a better understanding of storytelling. So I'm coming out of this with, better storytelling and pre-production and production in general. And Texas Whiskey is kind of, the episode's kind of a, an understanding of that, and looking at that episode and looking at my episode back in 2018 and seeing the difference. And that's what I hope people really see in all that, because again, I was used to jumping out of airplanes, blowing shit up, and traveling the world, with the military. So now I'm in a world, I wasn't even on social media 3 years ago, to now I'm sharing my life on social media and, learning about pre-production, post-production, storytelling, how to, edit and shoot stuff, algorithms, all that stuff, right? And it's been a steep learning curve. And, if the pandemic was a blessing for me, it was, in terms of being able to stop, take a look at that. And so now that when travel starts again and I can get back to putting out an episode, I think my quality of my episodes are going to be, a lot better. And my storytelling abilities will be a lot better, sense of place, bringing in a sense of place, and a lot of other different details that I learned from my past episodes that I'm really excited to share with the rest of the world.
Well, obviously, I enjoyed your bloopers and outtakes episode.
Yeah.
How often do you go back and watch the old episodes? Because for me, like, I don't listen to my old episodes. I can't.
Yeah, it's funny because I hate looking at myself on camera. I'm like, I hate listening to myself. I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous what I just said, so on and so forth. But I don't go back too often. I will tell you, I'd say probably 6 months ago when I was really, deep diving into my episodes, I sat down and watched each and every one of them again and took notes. But did I do that twice and 3 times on a few of them, but not all of them?
Yeah.
And I thought it was important for me to put out a bloopers, because, I respect this, we talked about it before, the Q&A, aspect of it, being in front of a camera to say 3 lines. And if you just take one breath, or stumble across one word, you got to do that whole thing over to make it sound right. these are all things I didn't know about, you know, and I really wanted to share that with people and, you know, show people that anybody can do this and it's fine and it's good, but it's not easy and you will get better, you know, and that was my biggest thing with the bloopers and outtakes is, you know, you can look at my first episodes in 2018. I was wearing sunglasses during an interview, and I'll never forget. Somebody commented, it was like, "You're a douchebag. You're wearing," and I told the dude, literally, I told the dude I was scared to be in front of a freaking camera. Like that helped me, you know, that kind of it just helped me get through that interview, you know, and, you know, I'm sorry. And the guy, you know, the funny thing is I actually wrote that in the comment back to him. I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he was like, and he changed his tone afterwards. He's like, "Well, okay, but maybe you should try some Ray-Bans or something like that, you know, instead of these cheap $10 sunglasses." So, but it was just funny. But yeah, you know, it's been such a learning curve for me. But the bloopers and outtakes, it's just showing people like, look, just get out there and do it. You know, you got to be, you know, you don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. And that's a big thing for me. And am I great after 3 years? You know, no. Do I still got a long way to go? Yes. But I'm better than I was yesterday and when I first started.
Absolutely. I know my editor's like, "I so appreciate you getting better at this because I don't have to spend so much time taking out the ums." Because
I'm telling you.
You don't realize.
I'm telling you.
I've told some of my guests, like, "Oh, I feel like I did well." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it's like 60 you know. That's what I hear because now I got to edit them out. It's like, oh my God. And then now I've got a buddy that's doing the editing. So I'm like, he's like, "Oh, you're doing a lot better." I'm like, "Thanks, bro."
Yep, that's it. I'll never forget. I couldn't even get through subscriber and click the button, and then I couldn't even say that. I was like, cut, do it again, cut, do it again. So I agree with you. It is, but you will get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I tell everybody. You will get better. Just, you know, it's okay. And if this is something that you really want to do, just know that you put in the effort, the time, effort, and energy into it, you will get better.
And here's the weird thing. I mean, I'm going to say you're probably mid-30s, 40s.
I'm actually 40, getting ready to turn 42 in April. So yeah.
So go back when you were in high school. Could you imagine telling your high school self or late teens, "Hey, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to have millions of viewers." You know, at least in my head, that was not even a thought.
Yeah, it was so small thinking, you know.
But you couldn't do it years ago. There was no platform.
You're right.
On CBS or ABC or NBC, and I wasn't doing that route. So.
It's funny you say that, Pete, because I think about the drone shots that I get on a drone, and 10 years ago, you'd have to contract a helicopter or a camera, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 just to get these same shots that we're getting right now. It's, you know, technology. I mean, and what it's allowing us to do as creators is absolutely amazing, and it's something that we all should take advantage of in some sort of capacity, because you're right. You know, you could be excited about food or making bread or this and that, and you could post stuff on YouTube, and you never know. You're one move away. You're one video away. You know, like I was telling you, the tequila video, I would have never known. It's not even my favorite episode, but it was one that really catapulted me, you know, and give me that motivation that what I'm doing, people actually are enjoying. So yeah, so crazy.
I've had neighbors that were social media influencers. My daughters worked for very influential people. It's bizarre. I've told so many people, it's like, when I was growing up, Dad said, "Get a job, work hard, and you get by." And now, like my next door neighbor, he was literally a makeup influencer. He put makeup on himself. His boyfriend would record him, and he would do these 1-minute videos, and all these makeup companies would send him free product. He'd go to parties, and all of his income, he didn't have another job. It's all he did.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying, like, you know, I was like, you go to college, you know, get a degree and get a good job. I look at my nieces and nephews now, and they want to be YouTube stars.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's so crazy to hear that, you know. It's so interesting, you know, what you're able to do now. And technology is just evolving. I mean, I'll give you an example, like even with my videos right now, you know, I'm looking at doing some interactive stuff with my videos because the technology is here. I'm looking at AR, and I'm even just starting to dabble into VR. I mean, now NFTs, I mean, they're talking about stuff like that. It's just like But as a creator, as a content creator, you have to be looking at, the future and how you could tie that into what you're doing. If not, unfortunately, you'll be left behind, and now look, when I first started YouTube, in 2018, in the alcohol space, I felt like it was a land grab. It was like, wow, there was not too many people doing it. Now I look at it in terms of who's doing a channel. I mean, you can type whiskey, and there's probably 40 YouTube channels talking about whiskey. You see what I mean? So
yeah.
You've got a lot of people doing this nowadays, and how are you going to stand out, above the rest? Is the question.
I think that's going to be the question for the remainder of time. I mean, and kind of whatever job you have. A lot of the business people I'm talking to right now are literally saying business has changed because of the pandemic. I mean, people are shopping more online and making it more of a regular habit. And we, as Americans, are habit people. So are the brick and mortar stores going to go out of business? Are people not going to eat out as much at the restaurants even when they open up again? If you've gotten into the habit of eating at home, then maybe you don't see the value of going out as much. So it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. I think I was just having a conversation about, movie theaters, and having, videos coming to your house, and, people being able to, leave the comfort of their homes to go see a movie. And what is that going to look like, when everything gets back to normal? So I'm with you.
So
and that's how I look at it.
$50 million to make, and are they not going to make them anymore because you can't get that much from the streaming?
You're exactly right. I looked at those change. People are buying, in terms of alcohol, because that's the world I live in, and how people are buying stuff. And again, you're right. Online sales booming. So the first thing I looked at is I'm giving information about these different brands and these different bottles and so on. And it's like, how can I sell directly to consumers after somebody watches my video about a product? So and that's where I'm at with it too as well. But and if you would ask that a year ago, that would have even been a thought. So I agree with you 100%. This pandemic has accelerated, especially technology and the way we do business, for sure.
And I don't know if you've thought about it, but if you become an expert in beer, wine, and spirits, and you become even a social media person of it, are you going to start selling some of the products that you've gone to online, and then you get a piece of it? Do you start selling the absinthe or the tequila or the Texas whiskey? Do you get a percentage from them? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where, as I'm moving forward, is exactly what I'm thinking, in terms of my business right now. The media company is video production, but now the technology is there where I can do interactive, things in my videos to send you directly to a link and get a marketing commission, based off of, how many clicks or sales that I get. So again, it's here, it's there. It's now me just figuring out how do I want to apply that and, put those into my videos and figure out contractually, with brands to be able to do that. And so I've already reached out and talked to a couple brands, and they're very excited about that, and in terms of me coming in, because, go ahead.
One of my concerns, I should say, is, and I'm putting myself in your shoes, is let's say Patron says, hey, we want to be a sponsor of your show, but then are they going to allow you to go interview the other tequila companies, or they only you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something I have to be considered, because you've got these big brands, you've got the Diageos, the Sazeracs, the AB InBevs, right?
Yeah.
And to be quite honest with you, Pete, like, I'm for the little guy, I'm for the small boutique wineries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I will tell you that conversations have been had in with these bigger brands, and they want the exclusive. Hey, we want you to talk about our portfolio, and while there is money and it's a great, I look at it and go like, wow, this would be able to, I could be able to travel a lot more to different places with this contract in place. I had to, decline it. And the reason is because I started this not to tell, to tell stories about, the small guys out there that have been doing this and been passed on from generation to generation. That's where my heart's at in it. And unfortunately, no amount of money, this sounds crazy, but no amount of money is going to deter me towards that, because that's my journey, is to be able to go to all these different places and tell as many tequila stories as I want, rum stories as I want, and not be bottlenecked because of money to telling a story about a brand, that, that has the capital to be able to do that. So, that's where I'm at with it, to be quite honest with you.
No, and I'm in the same boat. I mean, I've had so many people, wife included, ask about when am I going to monetize this thing, and I'm like, I don't know exactly how I want to do it, so I'm not going to just do it to try and make $40 a month, based on CPMs and everything else. It's like I'd just as soon not be beholden to it. Like I don't want to interview somebody I don't want to talk to because the PR person that's, what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm
no, not at all. I mean, you started this for a reason, and so your podcast for a reason, and this in the same boat. And I've always thought about this, and especially as I grow the channel, it's why did I start this in the first place? And that was to be able to, it's kind of like the reason why I love having my channel is because I control the narrative.
Yeah.
I control, if I was to do a series on something else, on some other bigger channel, like they're telling me, how I need to look and how I need to act and the shows that I need to. And I didn't start this to be on Netflix or to be on this. I started this because I can go around and travel around the world and tell all these authentic stories of people that probably wouldn't be heard otherwise, and so that's the whole space. In the Beer, Wine, and Spirits channel, I have complete creative control, and even with my videos, I have the control to be able to do that, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that at all, and no amount of money is going to tell me otherwise. I love being able to have the freedom to be able to do what I want and control the narrative of my channel.
Have you watched any of the Hot Ones with Sean Evans?
No, I haven't. Oh, yeah. Oh, amazing show. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy with
absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's so great.
So I was literally watching that show, and he had a guest named Gary Vaynerchuk on the show.
Yeah.
Who I had never heard of at the time. And I was just a fan of watching the Hot Ones. I thought it was a really good idea. And he had Gary on. And then Gary asked him, have you thought about doing this to the bigger platforms? And he goes, and Sean was like, he said exactly what you just said. I don't want to be controlled. If I go to HBO or Showtime or, one of the regular channels, then now I've got a boss that's going to tell me how he wants the show to look versus how I want the show to look. And he goes, I'm doing just fine on YouTube. And he did his episode with Gordon Ramsay, had 82 million views or whatever. So
yeah,
doing okay.
You're exactly right. And that's the thing is I know who I want to be and what I want, and money is, while we need it to survive, I get it, but it's not the motivating factor for me, to be on Netflix, to be able to be told, hey, you got to do this story and this story and this story. I'm like, by the way, I'm fine with what I'm doing now and telling stories. I've only been doing this 2.5, almost 3 years, so, and the stories and understanding storytelling, even right now, I thought I was the best storyteller in the world when I first started. I was like, man, my episodes are amazing.
Mine
now
would be
looking
so much
back,
better if I did it.
right. Now looking back 2 years ago, I'm looking at my old videos like, oh my God, I would have done this different. Now I could have, yeah, exactly. And now I can imagine, 2 years later,
Yeah.
So, I think that's, starting this later in my life, I have the utmost patience for it all. The journey is exactly that, it's for me waking up every day to find that episode, wherever it is in the world, instead of somebody telling me, Jeff, you got to be here and talk about this, this is, to be able to find something that I'm generally interested in, that I'm passionate about, it just comes through on camera. I don't need to worry about anything. And I think that's what people respect about it. Look, I'm not trained in, being in front of a camera or, in those arts, but I'm passionate about what I do. And, one of the things, the great things, I've had plenty of bad things said about my episodes, but a lot more good, which is great,
Yeah,
but one of the things is like, man, Jeff, your passion comes through, and that is what it's all about for me. And as long as I have control, you're going to get that every single episode. And I know that is the number one thing, when I produce and I storytell and I tell these episodes about these amazing people, look, I'm just a guide in all this. The brewers, the winemakers, distillers, the people behind the scenes, they're the star. But damn, I'm passionate about being there and learning from them and hearing them, and I love doing it. And I can't wake up. I can't wait to wake up every day and film another episode or find another great story to tell around the world. For me, it's so much fun.
And that's why when we were emailing each other back and forth, I started following you, and I'm like, oh, dude, we're so similar. I'm the exact same way. That's why I don't want to say I only interview musicians or athletes, because then I wouldn't have interviewed you. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's exactly where I want it to be. I mean, I'm not making the dollars and all that, but,
Yeah, it's funny because, that's one of the things that people ask me, like, how do you make money on this? And I was like, look, this was an idea and a dream. It wasn't exactly like I can open up and say, like, hey, I'm going to start making money on this right away. I came in with a plan of saying, look, I wanted to, like I told you before in the beginning, was, I started this. I didn't want to work for anybody else, and I wanted to create something for myself. I didn't make any money for 2 years doing this. I called every single brewery, winery, and distillery and asked and said, if you can teach me, in return, I will tell a story about your brewery for free, not even asking. And so I gave until, and I kept upping my production value until I got a call one day. I think it was about a year and a half into this. It was like, Jeff, we saw your video. I'm a brewery from this country, and we'll pay you to come and do some social media ads for us. And I was like, cool. And I can also put your video on my YouTube channel and get paid. Yeah. And so that's how it started. And I said, wait a minute, that's how I could start making money on this. But initially for the first 2 years, I mean, it was just give, get better at it, get better at video production. And now, I'm able to monetize, based off of, hey, look, what I bring to a chief marketing officer of a brand is, look, I can do video production. Here's my videos that I've done. And these are the brands that I've worked with, right? That was all done for free. So that's what I bring to them. I'm also bringing in new technology for them to be able to, that I'm looking at right now. And I also bring this thing called social currency, which I didn't even realize
huge
when I first started, that there's a price to that. So all of a sudden, 2 years later, when I wasn't making it, now, I bring this package to these marketing officers of these brands, and it sells. It's like, wow, I get somebody who has, a good following across social media. He also produces videos pretty well, and the list goes on and on. So, and they can make the decision on to go with me, or to go with, whoever else. But I can tell you one thing, it's hard to find that package, especially within the alcohol, industry. And that wasn't planned. I just happened to stumble upon that, through this journey and able to monetize based on that.
That's where I'm kind of stuck at. But I'm curious, a few things. Why are your episodes the length that they are? I mean, your full episodes are 13, 19, 18. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say this: if I make a 40-minute episode, it'll be 40 minutes. If an episode's 40 minutes long and it's good and I like it, the videographer likes it, and the brand likes it, it'll be 40 minutes. So I don't have a time limit per se. I always try to get down to the shortest video possible. If I can make a 4-minute video, I would every single time, right? I mean, that's essentially, the standard attention span I see on YouTube in terms of, before people click off of it.
Yeah.
But my standard is this: if 15 minutes, from start to finish of that video, I like it and the brand likes it and my videographer likes it, we're going to keep it 15 minutes. If it's 7 minutes and it's great all the way through, I'm not trying to cut it any shorter than what it needs to. And that's really what it comes down to with my standard is if I'm engaged. I've had a 25-minute episode, and I've watched it all the way through, and there was parts of it where it dragged, and I was like, no, we have to fix this. and you cut it a minute or two here, and then you watch it again, and you're like, yep, that's what we needed. It carries all the way through now. That's how I go about it. And what I see on the analytics of YouTube on the back end is we call it a drop-off rate. So my, people that are watching my episodes typically stay roughly, 60 to 75%. So of my episodes before they click off or do something else, or they go, oh damn, I got to get back to work. I didn't think this was going to be a great episode. I don't know, but that's what we're seeing, and so that's great for me. And I think again, I'm still working at it every day, but I think I'm a good storyteller where I can take information about how beer, wine, and spirits is made and balance that with a story. And so far in the last 3 years, looking at analytics and getting people's comments and feedbacks and so on and so forth, I know I'm on the right path, based off of the good things that people have been saying.
The reason I brought up the time too is if you were to do this even 10 years ago, your main goal would be to try and get it on TV,
mm-hmm.
right? Whether it was the History Channel, Discovery Channel. And so you would have to make, an 18 to 22 minute, probably a 22-minute video. So they would have their time for their commercials. But now, since that isn't your end game, you're like, I want to make a 13-minute video. That's what I like. It's like you're doing exactly what you want to do. You're not doing it to try and pitch it to go to that next level.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's a lot of other, like looking at it now, like if somebody was asking me, Jeff, can you make a 30-minute episode and make it compelling, off of that 13-minute episode you did about tequila? And I would say yes. Okay, how? Well, I'd bring more of a sense of place, maybe bring in another story or two. So there's things that I've learned too to be able to, expand off of that. But yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. I mean, in this day and age, especially for YouTube, it's, they always say, the 2 to 3, 4-minute episodes, that's kind of the sweet spot of YouTube. But again, for me, if it's good and it's 7 minutes, and for me, I'm okay with that. If it's good and it's 14 minutes, I'm okay with that too as well.
How hard or difficult was it to find your UL? Were you just lucky? Did you find somebody that really understands your vision as well?
Yeah, I have three videographers now, and I will tell you, I have spent weeks looking for these guys. Meaning, I would search the internet, YouTube, Instagram, and obviously I couldn't find a beer, wine, and spirits or somebody like that. I would look more on like the travel. So I would look up keywords about, travel videographers and so on and so forth. And really, the way I was connected to, Yoel as a videographer or, the other two videographers that I work with now is when I saw their videos, I would say this is exactly, if I was making that same video, this is exactly how I would do it.
Right.
So really looking at, how they shot a certain segment or a church or a building, and then they transitioned in their transition shots, I really liked, and the music that they used and how all that kind of corresponds is what really attracted me to them and reaching out to them saying, hey, how would you like to go travel the world and learn about beer, wine, and spirits and film it, right? I'm not, and the other thing was, I obviously, when I was starting off, I couldn't afford, a person that was, has been around and, is charging a lot of money to be able to film episodes. So I had to find somebody just like in my shoes that was hungry, that was trying to kickstart their career too as well. So again, the search was long for me. It took 3, 4, I would say, my last videographer took a month and a half, to search, every couple hours that night, or wake up in the morning and be like, all right, let's see what I can find today. And,
wow.
Lucky for me, the 3 guys that I have, they're amazing. They can video, they can edit, they can fly drones, and so there's some people out there that can only, they only film and, they'll pass everything off to an editor, or they can't fly a drone and, they don't know, so that was really it for me. And luck does, maybe play part in it, but I will tell you, doing your research and finding, taking your time to finding the right person, because I know some people are just like, yep, I'll just take this guy. But I found my success was when I saw their episodes or saw whatever their 30 seconds filming or whatever they were filming, I was like, that's exactly how I would do it. And it's panned out for me thus far.
That sounds awesome. What are your next steps? What are your plans for, I almost want to say 2022,
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah, I'm moving to Edinburgh, Scotland, for one.
For
So
real?
I'll be going and learning. Yes, I'll be going and learning all about distilling. I'll be going through a distilling program over there. I thought, who better to learn from about distilling, especially whiskey in particular, but then the Scots, right? So I was like, yep, I want to go over there, learn from the Scots on how to distill. And it'll also give me an opportunity to tell the story of Scotch and kind of look at the 5 different regions and tell my version of that story. And then obviously there's a huge Irish whiskey renaissance, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to go down there and really explore Ireland and tell the story of all these amazing Irish whiskey distilleries that are coming up. And then Europe's not, it's right there across the pond. So it's, there's a lot of stories to be told over there too as well, that I canceled, in 2020 that like Armagnac. I was supposed to tell a story about Armagnac. I was supposed to talk about a bay leaf liqueur down in Italy, and the list goes on and on. So a lot of my stories were in Europe that I'll be able to tell. So that's in August of this year, carrying into 2022. And yeah, the stories keep piling up every day. It's great. Every day I get a story, or a message from a distillery, in Australia or, New Zealand or, in Asia. So now it's really like, wow, I've got all these amazing stories to tell. How do I balance this all? And, which ones are the most compelling, which are the ones that I want to tell, so on and so forth. So yeah, things are really booming and going really great for me. I can't complain.
Dude, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I love hearing success stories,
Yeah.
How much of your military background do you think is why you are successful now or becoming more successful?
I tell everybody that it's the values and principles that I learned in the military that I carry forward. Being able, we had systems and processes, for everything too, in the military, for answering a phone, right? And, everything that I learned in the military, I'm able to transfer over, into what I'm doing now. I mean, going back to the whole example of wanting to quit, and suffering, I tell people all the time, if I didn't know how to suffer, I would have probably given up, and being in the military and having that mentality of never giving up, carried me through to where I'm at today, and so being reliable, being deployed and being reliable here for brands. I think about the values that we learn in the military of, leadership, duty, responsibility, selfless service, integrity, personal courage, right? The list goes on and on. All that stuff is who I am and what I'm able to carry forward into beer, wine, and spirits. And, it really is. It is. The military is exactly, it's molded me into who I am today. And I'm so proud to serve my country.
Well, obviously appreciate the time you spent serving, and you're right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't in the military, and yet I have some of the same mentalities. Like I've had many times where people told me, "Why do you quit?" or "What, you'll never get more famous people on your show," and I'm like, "It ain't about that." And all of a sudden, they're coming now, so it's kind of weird. Like, just don't give up.
Yeah, so many. Like I said, I just feel so many people, give up too quickly, because they don't see the results, the instant results and stuff. And, I hope listening to my story, listening to you and, they get that motivation just to keep going because it's, again, you're one move away, and I look back every single time and I think back and, man, if I would have given up, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, for example. And it's stuff like that really puts all that into perspective for me.
Yes, and I feel the same way. Yeah, I mean, I've had so many surreal moments on this show of people I listened to growing up and then talking to them on the phone. It's a little surreal.
It really is. It really is.
The places you've gotten to travel and the things you've got to do, it's kind of crazy.
You know what's funny about that, though, Pete, is that I created that.
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people, again, you can do anything, you want, with hard work, patience, and again, I say suffering, because you're going to have your ups. You're going to have those down moments in this all, but that is life, but we could be and do whatever we want, and we don't have to have it all figured out when we start, but you have to have a plan, just like with what you're doing, you have a job that's, it's bringing you in income, and this is a passion project. And it was the same way for me at first. I had a job, and, obviously I had my military income, and the beer, wine, and spirits started off as a passion project. And I was able to figure out how to monetize and turn that into a business. And now I get paid to do what I love doing. But it started with an idea and a dream, and something that I love doing. And here I am now, 3 years later. And I'm, it's surreal to think that it all started with that. And I had to go through a lot of suffering, a lot of hard work, and patience, but it's slowly starting to see the fruits of that labor. It's awesome. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's part of this journey that I'm on, not just on beer, wine, and spirits, but the journey, the personal journey that I'm on with this all.
I look at how much growth you've done, and now that you're moving to Scotland to take the distillery classes and all that. I mean, that's next level.
Yeah, it's never stop learning. It's so great. And what I preach, learn by doing. And, these weekend warrior classes, I call them, where I can go get a level 1 in beer or, wine and stuff like that. For me, I learn from all these experts, and I get my hands on with, learning about wine and stuff like that. And then I go to these classes and I say, this is like my check on learning, from all these experts, in the industry, and it's working. And so I always tell people, that message me and say, Jeff, what class should I take? There's this beer class on this weekend that I really like. And I'm saying, yeah, it's great. Like, don't get me wrong, take it. You're going to learn something. But I guarantee you go into a brewery and you say, hey, man, I will mop the floors if you every weekend, if you can just teach me an hour a day about brewing, and how much information and, experience that he's going to share with you is much more than you're going to get from, that weekend course or anything like that. So, and I'm proof in that. And so I really preach the learn by doing aspect of it. And that's how beer, wine, and spirits came about. I was like, I don't want to sit in a classroom to learn. I want to go obviously travel, and I want to go learn from, these guys that have been doing it for years and years and years. And it's been absolutely amazing. And, I'm looking forward to Scotland and meeting everybody over there and learning about distilling, and we'll see where the road takes me after that.
It's brilliant, the fact that you've, I was talking to my wife about our episode today, and I'm like, it's brilliant. The guy figured out a way. He gets to travel around the world, drink beer, liquor, and wine and spirits. It's a business write-off.
Yeah.
He gets to go, hopefully, with a buddy, your film editors, people you get along with, so you have someone to share it with. It's brilliant. That's
it, and again, I created it, it was the idea and the dream, and I created that. And I think everybody else can do the same thing. I really do. I really, really do. If that's something that they really want, and really want to accomplish and make money at, I don't know if it's going to take 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, but you can, and you will be able to do that. And again, you'll have your high moments and low moments, but you can, so, and now go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I get told quite often that I'm lucky to have the day job I have.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? I mean, I remember many of the jobs I had that got me to this position that sucked. I mean,
right.
I mean, you want to learn how to sell? Go sell portraits at a grocery store. For 8 hours a day, staying on your feet in the grocery store trying to sell portraits. So I remember, I don't know, it's like, I'm getting that now with my podcast where like, how do you get all these people? And I'm like, I don't know. I asked,
Yeah.
I put in the work.
Yeah.
A lot of no's.
Yeah.
And, I have my unicorns out there. I'm sure you have your unicorns.
Yep.
But
it's so true. It's so true. One, again, it's the same story when I talk to people like yourself, that started something from scratch. It's always that when I first started, it was one yes, 50 no's, and then it slowly starts to turn around, and now, don't get me wrong, I still get no's, but I get a lot more yeses, and that's in, 3 years.
I'm
So,
same boat. I mean, I just put out my episode this week with Maxie Priest.
uh-huh. Yeah, that was nuts. Yeah.
I've literally been listening since 1988.
Yeah.
And then, and I had to cut it out, but at the end, he's like, "Hey man, here's my cell number. Here's my personal number. Give me a call." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's like, wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's so amazing. That's so cool. And that's exactly it, and if you're passionate about what you're doing and, people, I get that too. I get, these brewers, like, for me, I always tell people this, when I meet the brewers, the winemakers, distillers, this is not a transaction for me.
Yeah.
This is not something I'm coming into saying, shaking their hands, saying, hey, yep, film or goodbye. This is sending them a message every now and then saying, hey, how you doing? Or them, telling me, sending me a message and being like, hey, Jeff, saw your new episode. It's awesome. Or, hey, Jeff, I saw you with this brewer. I'm really interested in what he's doing. Can you connect? And that, for me,
I've done that too. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't that? That's what it's all about, And so I'm with you. For me, this is not a transaction with any of these people I meet. To have a person to be able to call and if somebody needed barrels, I have that. If I can help anybody out within the industry, I can, and I love doing that.
It's interesting because I've connected some athletes with some other people I've met and sponsors and this and that. It's pretty cool. I feel like with the podcast, I'm putting out good in the world. And I feel you're probably the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
I will cut it off. We could talk for many hours.
Yeah.
I'll be down in San Diego in a few weeks for work. So
nice.
I don't know if you're going to be down there or not, but
yeah, you'll have to. I'm getting ready to film. I'll be up in actually Paso Robles on the first week of April. So, but I'll be in San Diego. I'll be filming an episode the 29th, 30th, and then I'll be heading up to Paso and where else? There's another place up there near Santa Barbara that I'll be up in that area filming.
You'll be in
as
Solvang and Los Olivos.
Yeah,
San Ynez.
Bulltop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Lompoc. There's a wine region up there that's doing really well. So I'll be up there too as well.
It's all my same. I have stores in Paso. I have stores in San Ynez. I have a store in Buellton. So.
Yeah, that's prime location for all the gear you're trying to sell there.
Yeah. Well, that's just
that's it. Yeah,
Temecula.
Temecula. Yeah,
wherever you're going for wine, where they have farms, they're Western clothing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you're so true in that. So true.
If you get a chance, there's a church up in Paso. It's a private church, but it's on a hill. You can go visit it. It's a trip. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It would be
definitely.
It would be a great shot. So I don't know if you have time, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Guy built his own little Catholic church up at the top of his hill, and he has wine trellises going up the stairs all the way up to this church. And it's his own little private church, and he has a priest or whatever come in on Sundays and do an open thing for the public, and then it's a trip. It's not that big; it's tiny, but it's just off the freeway.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, definitely willing to check that out.
And then you have the James Dean intersection right up there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I do that. I was just up there 3 weeks ago for my work. So
that's an awesome place. I love it up there.
Yeah,
I really do. I mean, San Diego's. I love San Diego. Don't get me wrong. It's probably one of the places I'll. If I could call one place like home, where I look at anywhere around the world I want to live, San Diego's up probably my top 5 places. I just really enjoy it there. But I will tell you, I Ventura, Santa Barbara, all through there, like San Luis Obispo, I really enjoy it there too. I find myself at peace there and really enjoy it. The area, with wine, you got the beach right there. So those are the things I love. The weather's not too bad, you get that fog in the morning, but other than that, it's those are some of the places that I just really enjoy being at.
Slow is kind of cool that way. That you could be at the beach at either at Pismo or Morro Rock in a half hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can be on a ranch.
Yeah, exactly. And I really, really love that. Croatia was another city that I was just kind of like, or not city, excuse me, a country that I was like, I I loved it there. I actually stayed there almost 2 months because I was like, it was, it doesn't have all the hype that Italy does. They're making great wines. It's cheap, and it was just so amazing. Like the pace of life was a lot slower. The food was absolutely amazing in terms of like, cuisine, which was obviously Mediterranean style with, you had your influences, from the Balkans and Italians and, all that stuff. So, I mean, for me, it was just, I loved it. Absolutely loved it there.
The pinup model I just had on a few weeks ago was from.
I listened to that. Yeah.
Okay.
She's up in Slovenia now. Yeah. She's up in Slovenia now. Slovenia is another great country. It's cheap. I stayed there a few days, Ljubljana and Bled and some of the other places. They're making some really good wines there too. It's a really cool place. Yeah, I love Slovenia.
Yeah, well, she's in Slovenia because of her boyfriend.
Yeah,
and,
I remember.
It's a trip to think. Here she is, 50s vintage pinup modeling.
Yeah.
And you're talking about they have great wine and this and that.
It is. It's surreal, man. And like I said, I didn't mean to hardball, but it's like you created that. You were like, you know what? I can talk about Western clothes. You could have talked about a million things on a podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could have went into your, in your world, like you said, and selling, Western stuff, and like, but why? You went after and said, no, I'm going to talk about travel. You know about it. It's obviously it's a passion of yours as well. And so I think, again, it's so cool. And you're getting to meet all these cool people. Again, I'm honored to share my story with you. And you'll figure the monetization will come, I get it. Like it'll come. But like right now, like, it doesn't need to be you've got your daytime stuff and you're able to do this on the side. If you look at your Instagram and your growth is freaking awesome. You know what I mean? You couldn't complain about that. Like
it's so funny because I just switched to my website. I have a new webmaster, and so he's
I saw it. Your website's awesome.
Thanks, man. It was so I didn't have a website at first for about the first year, and then
oh wow, yeah.
And my daughter, who's way too smart for her own good, is like, you should have a website so people can get to all your old episodes. Like,
yeah.
So I learned how to do a website. And I literally did it all. And I think it was like last September. I was like, you know what? I've had it. I'm not staying up on SEO and Yoast and now I know how to do it. But I hired a guy and he set it up. And he just told me last week, and I had some big spikes lately, and I don't know why. So I asked him, and he goes, "It's just so you know, your traffic's tripled in 1 year." I go,
"Yeah,
you're at 300% growth." Because me, I'm like, I want 1 million views.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm with you.
I want that 1 million, and they're like, but I should be happy with 300% growth in 1 year, not knowing what I'm doing.
You know what's funny though? Like one of my goals was obviously, like I want a YouTube video that has 1 million, plus views, and then you get it, and you're like, okay, it's like, all right, let me go after the next goal. It's like you're never going to get. I wouldn't say satisfied because I don't know if that's like but once you hit that, you're going to want something else. And once you hit that, you're going to want something else. And once you hit that, and so like, for me, that's where I was at. I was like, once I hit the 1 million, I'm like, okay, now what? Like, I never thought past, you know what I mean? Like past that 1 million. Okay, what's next? Okay, videos, or so on and so forth. But I'm with you, man, and, I like I said, when I reached out to you, that was one of the things. Your website was great. Your growth, the what you were talking about in terms of bringing people on, travel, business, and it was all stuff that I wanted to understand and listen to other people's story about too. Because like you said, I think I can connect to your story just as much as you can connect to mine. And not just in terms of travel, but starting something from scratch, so on and so forth. So, and that's what really drew me in to be like, let's reach out to Peter and see what he says. And because that's the mistake I made when I first started, was I didn't collaborate. Like there's so much power in cross collaborations. Like, me being able to show this episode on my platform, and people are like, wait a minute, this is cool, travel. Let me go check out this podcast. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to just me posting on YouTube all the time in my channel. Like, so, even I was getting the cross promotion from the brands, but, doing this with like other people that are in YouTube that are traveling and doing something similar is kind of what I wanted to dive into for 2021 and really, approach that angle as opposed to what I was doing the past couple of years.
Well, I think it's interesting because, I look at it and go, one of my guests gets something out of it, then I'm cool. It's like, I had one guest, and you'd have to listen to them all. But at the very end of he's like, man, he was like, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't want to do your show today, but
wow,
I'm really glad I did. You helped me clear out some things that I was thinking about for a while. I was like, wow, like kind of had like a little surreal moment there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you never know what direction you're gonna take it, and so it's that's what I've learned in podcasts is and being able to do a couple of these now, and I don't know what I'm gonna be talking about. You know what I mean? Like so being able to share my story and say whatever it was that we said. Obviously, the way I always ask. I remember asking one guy. I did a podcast in Germany. He was a marketing guy for Nike over there, and he did his podcast, learning over a drink or something like that. But I asked him, I said, well, how did you like that? Or I said, hey, I hope I was, and he says, or how do you judge, your podcast? And he's like, well, if I was entertained during the conversation or I was engaged into the conversation, it wasn't, you could talk to anybody, and sometimes it can be boring. But so he was just like, look, if I'm engaged in a conversation and I want to know more, and like, it ends up being this or this long and stuff like that because it was engaging and I like to generally talk to you. That was his term of like, I know this is going to be a good podcast. So, so that's kind of how I was like, because at first I was always worried. I'm like, man, I hope that was okay. But now I'm just kind of like, if the conversation flows as if it was just like you and I just talking, then I have a pretty good indication that there's some good information in there for viewers to listen in on.
Well, and I said now I'm starting to get some feedback from listeners. They're like, I really like that, or I can tell that they listened to the episode, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, then it's
it is, and there are people out there searching for for different things, and I like it, man. The travel wins, I think it's a cool name. And like I said, your website's really, it's just the way it's decorated, the colors, the pictures, being able to visually see what this podcast is about, you know what I mean? Kudos to you. So I think you're going to make me I need to go back to the drawing board on my website.
I don't think so, bro, man. I'm looking at yours going, I'm stealing ideas from you. Like, I like how you had the countries.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I was just literally looking at your website while we were talking, going, man, if I could put athletes and then have a real, big picture of the athletes, and then have my entertainers, and then have my business people, and then so I'm stealing from you too.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. So how many? You said you're on year? Is this year 2? You said
year 3. You're going to be my 150th episode.
Yeah, year 3. When did you hit? So I hit year 3 in April of this year, like literally April 12th this year. I go into my third year of doing beer, wine, and spirits, and I'm going to tell you, like, coming out of this, like, I feel like and this is going to sound crazy, like, I think my best years are going to be in year like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like I'll know enough. Like right now, I'm just super pumped to be able to understand and know what I know, and being able to now, I'm not scared to reach out to brands and stories, and the biggest thing, I'm not scared to ask for money anymore. That's where it's like, you're like, wait a minute.
Someone's going to pay me to do this?
So yeah, I know it's different on podcast, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, like if a brand reaches out to me, and I'm like, okay, but like, let's do it for this amount now, because, and I could justify the means behind it, so yeah. Before I was just like, yeah, let's do it for free. And then I would be like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I have to travel to New Zealand, which is going to cost me $10,000. It's like, so anyway, but, my point being is that, I think the best is yet to come. And I can definitely say that for you too as well. I think where you're headed is going to be really awesome. I'm excited to follow your journey as well, Peter.
All right, bro. I'm going to be calling you about every 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
And you don't need to just give me like a voicemail. Hey, Pete, you're doing great.
Yeah, like I said, like that's one thing. I definitely, you'd be surprised. I'll be commenting. So when I see a post or I see a new episode, so you'll start to see more comments from me. So yeah, it's one of those things that I love doing. And like I said, it's the least I can do for you taking the time and sharing my story on your platform, too as well. But more importantly, reach out if there's a winery, brewery, or if there's a new tequila you want to try, or you need some help or recommendations. Like I said, you have my phone number here. Reach out at any time. Email. You have my email. Reach out anytime. And I always say that I'm quicker on some days than other days, but at the end of the day, I will definitely get back to you. And you know that.
When we started traveling, when the lockdown first happened, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? Well, my stores survived. My online sales made through, but it was such a boom for my podcast because many of the people I wanted to talk to were traveling, and I've been able to get a hold of them now. So
that's awesome.
Might just be picking your brain for some video ideas.
Please do. Yeah, I always tell people, something that I've learned is definitely the video aspect and creative side of things. So if there's anything I can, let me know.
I'm curious why you haven't stripped the audio out of your shows and made podcast episodes with them.
That's something that I'll be blatantly honest with you. I feel that, I've missed that train. And it sounds crazy because I know a lot of people like, no, Jeff, you haven't. But I've been doing a lot of research on interactive technology, like I was telling you, in terms of putting that into my episodes. And I've been looking at AR, augmented reality, for some things. So I've kind of been putting a lot of my time and energy, not only just in the video production and getting better on that end, but looking at the next technology in VR and how I could start to implement some things now that will benefit me when, 10, 15, 20 years. I know that sounds crazy. And it is, a lot of it is really easy to strip out my audio and just put it up on a podcast and something like that. But I am so anal retentive when it comes to production, man, if that makes sense. So like my videos, if that tells you one thing, and I'm just, I'm not using the best and latest and greatest technology, but I'm still very anal in terms of details. And I just could not strip the audio and just be like, boop, because I'd have to have a cool website like yours. I would have to make sure that everything sounds right. And next thing I know, I'm like spread too thin, like we were talking about before. It's like all of a sudden, so that's I justify that.
That's what spooks me about starting my show, making it video, because I'm this way. It's like I want it to be good. I don't want to put out crap. I did that with the first couple audio episodes, and I hate them. So
I mean, I think if one thing is if I start right now the interactive stuff is people are paying. I mean, I've got talking to 3 brands right now, and there's some. I mean, this is really good money just to be able to put an interactive link to sell products on my video.
Yeah,
a brand's willing to pay $5,000, $6,000, $10,000. And then the marketing commission off of that. So if there's sales or just a commission rate. So once I'm able to just kind of pick up steam on there and really create this, again, kick this thing into high gear in terms of making money, like then I'll be able to scale and hire somebody to be able to do that and take over my social media crap, because that takes up a lot of my time too, as well, as you well know. So it was an honor talking to you. Like I said, it was you made it real easy to just get into the conversation. So I really appreciate that. And hit me up anytime. You got my email. You got my number.
Yeah, vice versa.
Take care, and I'll be following your journey as well.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate all the time, man.
Yep. Alrighty.
Thanks, Jeff.
And like I said, let me know when when the episode and how we want to cross promote and all that stuff. And too easy. Yeah. That would be no problem whatsoever.
You got it, man.
Alrighty, buddy.
Thanks.
Take care, Peter.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.